Hello, everyone. My name is Sonja Keller, and I'm the founder and clinical director of Innovative Social Work Solutions. Firstly, as a Blue Mountains resident, I would like to acknowledge the Gundungurra and Darug people who are the traditional custodians of the land I love, reside, and work on. I would also like to pay respect to elders, past and present, future, and emerging. It is my absolute pleasure to present this webinar today in celebration of the launch of Ignite, a book co-authored by successful entrepreneurial women, of which I've been honoured to be a part of. This book features stories, inspiration, and advice from leading women in business, and is an exciting read whether you want to change the world, invent a new product, take on the big brands, or simply inspire people. Best of all, the proceeds of the book go towards supporting disadvantaged women to follow their dreams and their passions. So without any further ado, I'm going to move to the slides. Ta-da! Okay. So, thank you again, Peace and Katie, for this wonderful opportunity to connect and share with you today. I want to present on a topic that as a social worker and agent of change, I use daily with my clients in private practice and also on my own personal journey. But first, who am I and what do I do? So first of all, I'm married. I live in the beautiful Blue Mountains and I'm a mother of three. Oops, sorry, mother of three. Just getting used to all this technology. So I have a 13-year-old who is my biological mother, a 17-year-old foster daughter who's transitioning into independence, and a 25-year-old stepson, all of whom are wonderful human beings. And I'm very proud to call them all my family. So that's first and foremost who I am. Professionally, I'm a clinical social worker. I'm the owner of Innovative Social Work Solutions. And I've had over 20 years experience working across many different domains, including education, prisons, child protection, and mental health. Over the last 10 years, I've been in private practice, working with people who've experienced trauma, including childhood sexual abuse, emotional problems, life transitions, and good old anxiety and depression. That we can all relate to at some point in our lives. An important part of my work is supporting people who experience childhood sexual abuse in institutionalised care by writing reports and appearing as an expert witness in legal proceedings. This, as you can imagine, is full on, but very satisfying work. In addition to private practice, I write and facilitate online courses for people experiencing stress and burnout, anxiety and trauma. And I have a select few entrepreneurs that I work with to establish good self-care and healthy mind practices so they can stress less, enjoy the work they do, and make more money. My latest project is the development of DBT emotional rescue cards. This is kind of what they look like here. Also known as your pocket therapist, which I will talk about a little bit more later. But today, I really wanted to focus on DBT, a tool that I work with on a daily basis with clients and also in my own personal journey. So DBT, what is it? So DBT stands for dialectical behavioural therapy. It's a type of talk therapy that's based on CBT, which you might have heard of before. CBT stands for cognitive behavioural therapy and is the go-to evidence-based practice that a lot of us social workers and psychologists and doctors use. But it's specifically adapted for people who experience emotions intensely. So anybody here an empath? I know I'm certainly an empath, and a huge population of people are also empaths, which means that we feel very deeply. And as people who feel very deeply, then we feel and take on the energy of others. And that can sometimes increase the levels of intensity that we feel in terms of our own emotional management. So dialectical means combining opposite ideas. It focuses on helping people to accept the reality of their lives. Ever heard that serenity prayer? Help me to accept the things I cannot change and change the things that I can, and wisdom to know the difference. So DBT is very much around acceptance-based therapy. So accepting the reality of lives and behaviours as well as helping people to learn to change their lives, including their unhelpful thinking and behaviours. Dialectical behavioural therapy was developed in the 1970s by Marsha Linehan. And I've got a picture of myself with Marsha Linehan on the slide there. She's an American psychiatrist of whom I had the pleasure of being trained by in 2017, specifically in DBT. So she's a pretty amazing woman. Anyone in the medical or psych field would have heard of her, and would really know the benefits of DBT in practice. So Marsha saw a need to focus on a skill set that people could use to help regulate intense emotions, and a method in which to self-soothe when feeling overwhelmed or distressed. And how many of us as business people feel overwhelmed and distressed from time to time? It's something that we all experience. You don't have to have a personality disorder or a mental health illness or disorder to gain benefit from DBT skills, although DBT is very good used in a mental health setting as well. But honestly, it's a tool that we can all learn from, that we can all use in our everyday lives. And the sooner that we teach our children how to use some of these skills, the better a world we're going to have. So moving on to the next slide. So there are 4 pillars in DBT. So the first one is mindfulness. The second one is emotional regulation. The third is distress tolerance. And the fourth is interpersonal effectiveness. And there are also 2 elements to DBT I should probably explain. There's the talk therapy side that you do one-on-one with your counsellor or psychologist or social worker. And there's the skills therapy, which you can do via workbooks, you can do in a group setting, or again, you can do one-on-one with your therapist. So the skills are probably the most important part of DBT. And we're going to explore these 4 pillars in more detail right now. So mindfulness. You've probably all heard the term mindfulness. It's become a bit of a buzzword in the last few years, but what does it actually mean? So mindfulness is all about being in the present moment. So if we think of it this way, when we're in the present moment fully, there's no past, there's no future. It's just what we're sitting with in that moment. And when you can truly be mindful, even for a moment, it releases a lot of stress and pressure, because the majority of distress or unhelpful thinking comes from stuff that's happened in the past and worried about what might happen in the future. And so if we eliminate both of those 2 and just remain right in the center in a mindful space, there's no distress. So all we have really is the present moment, if we think of it that way. So mindfulness is a tool that we use to develop mastery over the mind. Mindfulness is a tool that I use in my life every single day. I live it, I breathe it, and I teach it, and I love it. And I really want to share an exercise with you today that I love. It's a very simple exercise, but it's an exercise that helps you just to stop and come back in your body, bring your mind back into your body so it's not buzzing around in the future or in the past, bringing it back into the present moment So if you can just sit comfortably on your chairs wherever you are right now and gently close your eyes, if that feels okay for you. Otherwise, keep them softly open and perhaps looking down towards the ground. We're going to do an exercise called Hello Body. And I use this a lot in trauma work and a lot as a precursor to doing EMDR and DBT skills. Taking a deep breath in through your nose. Hold your breath for 10 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and release. Letting it all hang out. How good does that feel? Begin to notice the parts of your body that meet the chair. Your back supported, your seat bones and your feet on the ground. Now we will take a little journey through your body, saying hello to it, as if we could really meet it as it is, not try to change it. Beginning with your head, say hello to your head. Perhaps being with your brain a little, appreciating the protection of your skull. Moving down into your neck and throat area, saying hello to your throat. Perhaps staying here for a few moments, just noticing, not trying to change anything. Becoming aware of your shoulders and arms, saying hello to your arms, allowing them to be just as they are. Saying hello to your hands. Perhaps reflecting on all they do for you as you are with them. Moving to the base of your throat and now down to your chest, your heart space. Saying hello to your heart. Spending a few moments here with your heart. Perhaps saying hello to your lungs as they inflate and deflate without you consciously having to do anything. Moving down into your abdomen, saying hello to the organs in there, doing their thing without you having to think about it. Just being with them and noticing. Say hello, perhaps to your spine, that internal support inside your body, noticing its entire length. Moving now to your pelvis, your pelvic bowl container, saying hello to your pelvis. Say hello to your legs, your thighs, knees, calves, and shins. Say hello to your feet, just being with your feet. Now say hello to your entire body, your whole body, welcoming it into this space. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes. Thanks for joining me on that mindfulness journey. There's so many different ways to be mindful. And that's just one exercise, which I would like to give some credit to one of my colleagues, Karen O'Doherty. Karen knows how much I love mindfulness and how much I enjoy teaching mindfulness practices. And she gave me that particular exercise, which I have been using with my clients and really enjoying the simplicity of it. Anyway, I hope you got something lovely out of that exercise. So that was the first pillar of DBT. Now we're going to move on to emotional regulation. So emotions, we all have them. We all have them, right? We do. At times, emotions such as stress, anger, and fear can become quite overwhelming. So it's useful to have a toolkit we can go to when feeling this way to help reduce the impact of what we feel so we can get on with our day and be productive. There are a plethora of strategies that fall under emotional regulation, but today I've chosen to focus on just one, and that is called opposite action. So when you experience an emotion, and I can talk for hours about this, but I've only got about 2 minutes to talk about emotional regulation, so I'll have to get through it fairly quickly. But when you experience an emotion, there is a sensation that occurs within the body. We often focus on the thought or the mind aspect of an emotion, but wherever there is a thought or feeling, there is a corresponding sensation in the body. And where there is a thought, there is a judgment. And where there is a judgment, a behavior usually comes from it. So I want to give you an example of a good friend of mine, Bruno Cayun, who talks about the barbecue. So there's a barbecue and you're planning a barbecue, let's just say. And all of a sudden you look outside and you see water falling from the sky. You notice it and you go, oh, you categorize it and say, that's rain. And then you form a judgment on that. So if you were about to have a barbecue, you might go, oh no, it's raining. That's really terrible. That's going to just ruin my barbecue. I'm going to have to ring up and cancel it because that's no fun having a barbecue in the rain. And then you have a behavior that comes from that. So you might stomp around the house a little bit or growl at somebody, or I don't know, but there's a behavior, a corresponding behavior to that judgment. If you were a farmer and you saw rain, you might do a rain dance and go, yeah, it's raining. This is so good. I need rain. My crops are really thirsty and this is so good. And that might make you feel so happy you invite your neighbours over for a drink. So that's a little bit of an example of how thoughts, judgments, and behaviours come to light. So when we put in place opposite action, which is a skill that we use in DBT under emotional regulation, we want to have a look at what the behaviour might be. So, for example, if you are angry, you might fight or argue or stomp around the house if you're by yourself. And if you're sad, you might withdraw from your friends, or you might cry. I don't know, what do you normally do when you're sad? What do I do? I sit on the couch and stare into space. So your body causes you to react to your emotions in a specific way, and everyone's a little bit different with the way that they react to emotions. But here's the thing, doing the opposite action will help you change the emotion. For example, if you typically start to yell when you're angry, try talking quietly and politely. If you withdraw when you're sad, make a point to visit a friend when you next feel this way. Very simple techniques, but very powerful techniques, very powerful. So that's what we do with opposite action. And sometimes it takes a little bit of effort on our part to do it. But if you're feeling really sad and you suddenly smile, guess what? It actually lifts your mood a little bit. And it's the same when we're feeling angry. If we start to speak in a gentle voice, we're actually telling our brain to regulate the anger. And we're telling our brain to self-soothe and to calm. And the body follows. And then when the body follows, the mind follows. So this is all evidence-based stuff, people. It's good stuff. So that is emotional regulation. And like I said, there are so many different skills that we learn in DBT around emotional regulation. It's really worth looking into a bit further. The next one is distress tolerance, otherwise known as crisis survival. It's when our bodies go into flight, fight, freeze, or even fawn. It's when we feel so heightened, we need to act out to feel better. When we're experiencing strong distress, our brain is communicating danger to us, and our body is producing loads of adrenaline and cortisol. And this, in turn, increases our heart rate and our blood flow to all our vital organs for survival. Now, here's the thing. When a bear is chasing us, then this is absolutely warranted. And we will need all the adrenaline we can muster to either run away from the bear or fight it. But a lot of the time, that kind of reaction is not warranted. And then it becomes a problem. We live in a day and age where technology allows us to live a life that's really fast-paced. We can fit more in, and therefore our bodies react by becoming stressed. And because this is such a normal thing for us now, we don't even know when our bodies are stressed, and that's scary. We usually realize we're stressed after it's too late, after we've had a road rage attack, after we've yelled at our children for something that they probably didn't deserve, after we've had a fight with our husband, after we've, torn something in half that we weren't happy with. That's when we realize that we're stressed, when in fact, the stress has been there all along, and it just takes one or two little things that tip that point into de-stress. So our body becomes de-stressed when we're in crisis. But when we perceive that we're in crisis, somebody else might not perceive that, being chased by a bear is a crisis, but we believe it's a crisis, so therefore it is. And our bodies and our brains will act as if it is crisis. So this is what we need to do. All right. When we're stressed, like I said, we're more likely to become de-stressed. And so we want to use the DBT skill distress tolerance. So the one that I've chosen today is probably one of the most popular of the DBT skills for distress tolerance, to be used in crisis, okay, when there's crisis. So TIP skills. So TIP is an acronym which stands for T for temperature change, I, intense exercise, P, progressive muscle relaxation, and P, paired breathing. So that's right, there are 2 Ps at the end of TIP. But TIP skills are easy to remember. So next time you're feeling completely overwhelmed by your crisis, I want you to try one of these. So tipping the temperature or changing the temperature. This is pretty hardcore. You can either go really hardcore or not so hardcore. Really hardcore is getting a very, very cold bucket of water with ice in it and dunking your head or submerging your head in there. What happens is that elicits what we call a diver's response, which shuts down the organs of the body and promotes instant calm and relaxation. Now, what happens in our body when that's going on is the brain activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So you've got an autonomic nervous system, which sits up here. Then you've got 2 nervous systems underneath. You've got the sympathetic nervous system, which is the stress response in the body, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which regulates the stress response in the body. So TIP skills activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So we want to change the temperature of our body, and we do that by submerging our face or our head into freezing cold water for as long as we possibly can. You might notice that it will take your breath away a little bit, and that's what it's meant to do. Another thing you can do is to put a cold ice pack over your eyes, okay? Why the eyes, I'm not sure, but evidence shows us that covering the eyes with an ice pack will help to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. It can be very relaxing. Plus the searing cold temperature will, help activate the parasympathetic nervous system as well. Another way you can do temperature is by holding ice cubes in your hands. That's a very popular one to do. That's actually, if you're working with, when I work with clients who self-harm, I often ask them to hold ice cubes instead of self-harming, because that can give them the pain that they need and want at that critical moment without causing damage. And then the second one, I, is intense exercise. So if you jump down and do 50 push-ups or sit-ups or jumping jacks or go for a run around the block, that's actually going to work out the cortisol, the adrenaline that's caused by the angry feeling or the crisis that you're in at that time, and will give you a sense of calm afterwards. And then there's the progressive muscle relaxation. I would absolutely, if I had more time, I would love to do this exercise with you. It's one of my absolute favorites, and my clients love it as well. But maybe another time we can do that. And the same with paired breathing. We call it paired breathing, but it's also known as coherent breathing, which actually regulates the heart and the lungs so that they're working in tandem together rather than out of sync. Often our breathing is very, very shallow, and particularly when we're in distress, our breathing becomes very shallow, and therefore we don't get enough oxygen to the brain, and our organs don't get enough oxygen, and that can actually cause further distress to the body. So paired breathing or coherent breathing is a fabulous exercise where you can get the heart and the lungs in sync together. Love it. And then finally, the 4th pillar of DBT is interpersonal effectiveness. And it's all about communication. So learning to get along with others is really essential. And that's really hard to do sometimes when you're in a very stressed space. So we need to learn how to effectively assert our own needs to be in healthy relationships. Sometimes it's difficult to balance your own needs and the needs of others, But how can you get what you need without being aggressive or neglecting of the needs of others? So there are 3 sets of skills that we do in DBT to learn to help achieve this goal. And they are objective effectiveness, relationship effectiveness, and self-respect effectiveness. So today I thought that we would have a look at the self-respect effectiveness part, and the acronym that we use for this is FAST, F-A-S-T. So F stands for fair. Be fair, not only to others, but also to yourself. Easier said than done. A, apologies. Don't apologize unless it's warranted. Don't apologize for making a request, having an opinion, or disagreeing. You are entitled to make a request, have an opinion, or disagree. It's perfectly okay to do that, so long as you're doing it in a calm and respectful way. So don't apologize because you're under, what's the word? You're not doing yourself any favors. Okay, you're not respecting yourself when you apologize all the time. I'm sorry, but I have a different opinion. You don't need to say I'm sorry. You can simply say, I see things a little differently. I see things like this. And then S is stick to your values. Don't compromise your values just to be liked or to get what you want. Stand up for what you believe. This is something that I teach my 13-year-old daughter and my 17-year-old all the time. Stick to your values. You don't have to do something just because everybody else is doing it. Okay. And then the last one, T, stands for truthful. Avoid dishonesty, such as exaggeration, acting helpless as a form of manipulation, or outright lying. So being truthful really adds to effective communication and being interpersonally effective. So that is just one very small skill that out of hundreds of skills that we use in DBT, personal effectiveness. So I hoped that you liked that little presentation around the 4 pillars. Next, I wanted to show you my latest project, which are all based on DBT, and they are DBT emotional rescue cards. And this is what it looks like in the box. And this was my baby. I loved making these. On the back, I've got a bit of a blurb about who I am and what the cards are for. But basically, they're a group of 40 cards, each with a different emotion on them. As you can see in the picture, we've got overwhelmed, stressed, reactive, angry, afraid, guilty, vulnerable, hurt, and there are many, many others in there. And then on the back of each card, there's a blurb on what the emotion is and how it impacts and what's happening in your body whilst you're having that emotion. And then on the other side of the card, here's what to do. Very actionable steps that you can take to help yourself feel better. And that's what I love about these cards. It's not like a book. It's more like oracle cards, but all based on dialectical behavioral therapy skills and strategies. Underneath the cards, you'll see at the bottom, it says meditation. Every single card is linked to a meditation that sits and fits beautifully with that particular emotion. So I was very excited to launch these cards. Obviously, I use them a lot in therapy with my clients, but they're really handy just to take everywhere with me. They're handy to use with my children. They're handy to use with friends. I've had plenty of friends buy them. And I've had a lot of clinicians or people who work as life coaches buy them as well. So very exciting stuff. So here's a bit more of a look on what it looks like on the back of a card. And for this card, I chose reactive. I did the artwork as well, by the way. And I love that one. It's just like a bleh, which is often what it's like when we have a reactive reaction. And so, as you can see, it talks about the reactivity, what's happening in our body. And this one talks about tip skills, which is what we talked about in the DBT before. And then it's linked into a paced breathing meditation. This one is about abandoned. So, you know, feeling abandoned can be one of the most painful emotions ever experienced. Absolutely. Abandonment just feels awful if you've ever experienced that. And, you know, there's some people that really experience feelings of abandonment and rejection, and that can not only destroy their day, it can destroy them, their week, their month, their year. And some people have a lifetime of feeling abandonment and rejection, and it's not a nice place to be. So, you know, there's some really lovely strategies here on how to self-soothe, how to raise your vibe a little more so you're not feeling so vulnerable and abandoned. And of course, there is a calm and restore meditation that you can link into at the bottom of the card. This one's an interesting one, envious. Talks about envy, what it is, why we feel envious, and we all have these emotions. It's, you know, all of us do. And what you can do here, and this one I use the DBT skill opposite actions, and then the meditation, I am enough, which is beautiful. So if you would like to find out more about DBT, on my website, I've got a whole page all about DBT and what it can do for you. And if you would like to get some cards, you can also do that from my website, www.sonjakeller.com.au/DBT-emotional-rescue-cards. But I would love you to visit my website and have a look around. There's plenty of information about all sorts of different mental health challenges on there. And yeah, that's great. So thank you very much for watching. It's been wonderful having this opportunity to share some of my work. I'm very passionate about my work. I can talk for hours about so many different aspects of my work. And so it was hard to pick, you know, what I was going to talk about today, but thank you. And I look forward to seeing you all again another time.